A village bush rat has become a lion. Now that you have taken a liking to the king, he would be well pleased if you fed his prized pets. Go now. Quick.
Back in the village of Ngede, Sabi's parents sought the counsel of the village elders, and so they all gathered in the village square where they usually sit to discuss urgent and weighty matters in the presence of the community chief and headman. A decision was reached. Nothing can be done for the young girl taken from our village. Labour was in utter disbelief. He expected more from these men, even if just a peace offering on his behalf. I have labored alongside all of you, even preventing the soldiers from knocking on your doors. So, is it to be my daughter who will take it upon herself to make up for your share of the taxes owed to the king? Alalibo quickly snaps back at Labour. Would you have us leave our homes and our families and join in this quest of yours? The hen that leaves her cheeks unguarded cannot complain when the predators arrive. Everyone in the group nodded in agreement. Alalibo continued. We also have our wives and our children to look out for. Pointing at Labour with contempt, he added, to stand before King Dabota without being summoned is an action reserved for fools. Ever since his defeat 5 years ago in the village strength competition, Alalibo was never fond of Labour. Yet in Labour's eyes, Alalibo resembled a peacock, very good at displaying its colourful broad feathers, yet lacking the ability to take flight when the need arises. Labour was completely disappointed. He knew that winning their hearts in this case would be a different challenge. Back at home, Benny waited anxiously for her husband's return, hoping for good news that unfortunately never came. This is all your fault. You should never have attacked the king's soldier. Benny lashed out at Labour. Would you have had me sit there and do nothing? Labour snapped back at Benny, pulling her close to himself to comfort her. He softly urged Benny, his wife, to stop weeping. I never thought this day would come. The goat, even with a frown, would find itself brought to the market and sold. I have sent for your mother to come stay with you until my return. For tomorrow, I am journeying to the kingdom of Warijofa. Benny was stunned. Her husband had sworn never to return to that kingdom. Would he really go back? But on the other hand, she was secretly relieved, because the situation at hand called for a more decisive action. Meanwhile, back in the palace, Bariza requested a meeting with Mama Omero after concluding his audience with King Dabota. Upon seeing Omero, he offered her 5 gold pallets, instructing Omero to ensure that Sabi is well taken care of and to keep her out of trouble. Ah, my chief. Why so much for a village girl? Or has your son grown bored of his engagement to Ibinabo's daughter? Omero said with glee and mischief. Bariza laughs in amusement. An old broom knows only the dirty corners of the house best. Besides, she has already been through enough, being very far from home. I am sure that with you in the palace, she would find a new home. See to it. Bariza commands. My chief. Omero bows in humble obedience. Chief Bariza was not always a sentimental man. In his younger years, he was more of a carefree person. But now, he only seeks to make amends for his failings. Deep in the jungle of Bomadi Kingdom, Labour embarks on a journey to the kingdom of Warijofa in a quest to bring his daughter back home, crossing rough rivers and climbing beyond the hills of the grasslands. Finally, the great city. Looking very exhausted, having traveled a great length, he arrived at the gate of the castle of Ose Abasiama. But taking him for a beggar, an overly eager castle guard walked toward Labour, waving his hand, signaling to him to move away at once. Undisturbed, Labour continued walking straight towards the gate. The guard then raised his staff, attempting to hit Labour on the back. However, using his one good hand, Labour stopped the guard and held firmly to the staff as the guard struggles unsuccessfully to retrieve it from Labar's grip. He then runs inside the castle to call for reinforcement. Who could that be? Old man Joffo, who was in charge of the castle, said as he runs outside with the guards scrambling to see what kind of beggar would pose a threat. Running towards Labar, Joffo suddenly stops. As he planted both knees on the floor, he shouted out, "The prince has returned! Kneel!" They all knelt down in front of Labar. Labar's face was one he would never forget, for he was there to help train the young man when he was just a boy. Labar Roque Benigo Abasiama, from the royal house of Ose Abasiama, fifth in line to the throne of the kingdom of Wari-Jaffa. Though living as a humble farmer in the village of Ngede, Labar stood tall in front of his father's castle. Word quickly spread of the return of the prince. As soon as the news reached his father's ears, he quickly ran out of his chambers to welcome back his son. "My son," Prince Benigo called out, stretching out his arms to embrace Labar. Labar replies as he quickly knelt down on one knee, following the customary way to greet one's elders. "After these many years, you are a joyful sight for these old eyes." But as Benigo urged his son to get on his feet, he noticed that Labar was missing half of one of his arms. Seeing his father's reaction, Labar informed him that they had much to talk about. Not wanting to make a scene, Prince Benigo commands his servants, "Prepare the royal bath. Call the royal groomers to bring in warm palm kernel oil. Prepare a feast. My son is home." So bright and early the next morning, Labar Roque, as he is known in the royal house, sat before his father, Prince Benigo, who was uncle to King Mirbaka of Wari-Jaffa. The kingdom of Wari-Jaffa, located north of Bomadi, possessed 3 times the landmass and wealth. Wari-Jaffa controlled the seas, with trades extending as far as the cities in Macedonia, ruled by the notorious King Mirbaka. After relating the course of events that had transpired, Labar pleaded with his father to send peace emissaries to retrieve his daughter from the Bota. "Silence!" Benigo interrupted his son. "King Mirbaka will do no such thing. Word of this must never reach his ears. Some of the princes, including myself, have been working against any excuse he might find to conquer the surrounding kingdoms, destabilizing our thriving communities. And you hand him this on a platter?" His father continued in anger. "While you have been living your life content in that mosquito-infested swamp of a village in Bomadi, I have held my father's house. I recall when you stood by my side in delegations sent to the kingdom across the seas. Even then, you never lost a finger, and now you allow a flea that fell from the crown of Dabota to relieve you of your arm and your daughter, an offspring of Abasiama, all because you have grown weak." Labar did not utter a single word to his father. He knew Benigo spoke out of pain, because 15 years ago, Labar left his home and his duties and decided to make a home for himself in the small village of Ngede. Labar Roque always expressed profound dissatisfaction at the commotion and struggle for power in the royal house, a choice he never made for himself in the first place. "Papa, our daughter needs our help," Labar simply said in a calm voice. After taking a deep breath, Prince Benigo called for his spokesman. "Go, deliver this message to Commander Ibimina. Send me 3 spies from your very best men, wise and cautious, to spy on the royal house of Bomadi. Tell him that this matter concerns my house only and must not be reported to the king. Be warned, they will report only to me."